Imagine growing up behind a wall. Not a wall in a story, not a wall in a movie, a real wall, made of concrete, topped with barbed wire, and guarded by soldiers with orders to shoot anyone who tried to cross it. On one side of that wall, there was freedom. Lights, music, laughter, life. People could say what they thought, go where they wanted, dream as big as they dared. On the other side, there was silence, fear, a government that watched everything you did, everything you said, and even everything you felt. And she was born on the wrong side. And yet, this woman, this quiet, unassuming daughter of a Protestant pastor, this girl who grew up in one of the most controlled, most surveilled societies on earth, would one day become the most powerful person in Europe. She would lead Germany for 16 years. She would stand face to face with Vladimir Putin and not blink. She would hold the entire European Union together when it was falling apart. And she would do all of this without ever raising her voice. This is the story of Angela Merkel, the girl behind the wall who changed the world. It's July 17, 1954, Hamburg, West Germany. A baby girl is born to Horst and Herlinde Kästner, and they name her Angela. The world she comes into is still piecing itself back together. World War II ended less than 10 years ago, and Germany, the country that started that war, is now split in two. West Germany is rebuilding. It's democratic, open, and slowly finding its footing again. East Germany, on the other hand, is something completely different. It's communist, tightly controlled, and ruled by a government that does not trust its own people. Now here's the thing. Angela is born in the West, in Hamburg, on the free side. She could have grown up with all the freedoms of the Western world. But her father, Horst Kästner, a Lutheran pastor, makes a decision that will change everything for his family. He decides to move them east, not because he's forced to, not because he has no choice, but because he genuinely believes that the people of East Germany need pastors. They need faith. They need hope. And he wants to be the one to bring it to them. So he packs up his family, including his baby daughter Angela, who is just a few weeks old, and he crosses into East Germany. Angela doesn't know it yet, of course. She's just a baby. But she has just entered a cage. The family eventually settles in a small town called Templin, surrounded by forests and lakes, quiet and peaceful on the surface, beautiful even. But underneath that beauty, fear runs through absolutely everything. Because East Germany has the Stasi, the secret police, and the Stasi don't just watch criminals or dissidents, they watch everybody. Neighbors report neighbors, friends report friends, children are taught to report their own parents. It's a society built on suspicion, and Angela grows up right in the middle of it. Her father is a pastor in a country where religion is not exactly welcome. The communist government doesn't ban the church outright, but they make it very clear that loyalty belongs to the party, not to God. Horst Kästner walks a careful line every single day. He preaches, he serves his community. He survives, and his daughter Angela watches all of this. She watches how her father navigates a system designed to crush him. She watches how he says exactly enough and never one word more. She is learning, without even realizing it, one of the most important skills she will ever have: how to survive inside a system, how to work within it, how to be patient, how to wait. As a child, Angela is quiet, serious, thoughtful. She's not the loudest person in the room. She never is. She's the one sitting in the corner, watching, listening, calculating, and she is absolutely brilliant. She loves mathematics. She loves science. Not because anyone tells her to, but because in science, the answers don't lie. 2 plus 2 is always 4. In a country where truth is twisted and propaganda replaces reality every single day, that certainty is more than just comforting. It is a refuge. She wins the National Russian Language Olympiad twice, not to impress the state, not to get special privileges, simply because she is extraordinary. Her teachers know it. Her classmates know it. And deep down, Angela Kästner knows it too. She just hasn't decided yet what to do with it. 1973. Angela is 19 years old, and she enrolls at the University of Leipzig to study physics. This is the path she has chosen. Not politics, not leadership, not power. science. She wants to understand how the world actually works at the most fundamental level. And at university, she discovers something wonderful. She is not just good at physics, she is exceptional. Her professors see it immediately. Her classmates see it. She has this remarkable gift for taking the most complex, overwhelming problems and breaking them down into simple, manageable steps, for finding the pattern inside the chaos, for staying completely calm when everyone else around her is losing their heads. These are not just the skills of a great physicist. These are the skills of a great leader. But she isn't thinking about leadership yet. At university, she also meets a fellow physics student, Ulrich Merkel. They fall in love, and in 1977, they get married. She takes his name, Angela Merkel. The marriage, unfortunately, doesn't last. They divorce in 1982, but she keeps the name, Angela Merkel, the name that will one day be recognized in every country on Earth. After university, she moves to East Berlin and joins the Academy of Sciences. She works in quantum chemistry, some of the most complex, abstract science that exists. She publishes research papers. She earns her PhD. She is doing brilliant work, deeply important work, and it is almost completely invisible to the outside world. Because outside her laboratory, East Germany is quietly dying. The economy is failing. The shops are empty. The queues for basic food grow longer every month. And the people, who have been told for decades that communism is the future, are exhausted. They are tired of waiting for a future that never arrives. Angela Merkel feels it too. Every night, she turns on her television, quietly, carefully, and watches West German channels. She watches a world where people speak freely, a world where shelves are full, a world where you can go anywhere you want, do anything you want, say anything you want, without permission. She wants that world desperately, but she is patient. She is always patient, and she waits. November 9th, 1989, one of the most important nights in modern history. And Angela Merkel, quantum chemist, daughter of a pastor, 35 years old, is at a public sauna with a friend. A perfectly ordinary Thursday evening. She has no idea what is about to happen. For months, things have been building toward a breaking point. Hungary opened its border with Austria, and thousands of East Germans flooded through, escaping to the west. Massive protest movements swept through Leipzig, Dresden, and East Berlin. Hundreds of thousands of people marching through the streets, carrying candles, chanting, demanding freedom. The East German government, panicking and completely out of ideas, announces some vague new travel reforms. A government spokesperson reads the new policy live on television. A journalist asks, "When does this take effect?" The spokesperson shuffles his papers, looks confused, and says, "And I want you to really think about what these words did." He says, "Immediately, without delay." He had no idea. He genuinely had no idea what those 4 words were about to unleash. Within hours, thousands, then tens of thousands of East Germans rushed to the border checkpoints. The guards, completely overwhelmed, with no orders and no guidance, did the only thing they could do. They opened the gates, and the Berlin Wall, the most feared, most hated barrier in the modern world, fell. Not to bombs, not to armies, not to war, but to people, to hope, and to one confused bureaucrat's accidental announcement. Angela finishes her sauna, steps outside, and hears the noise. Something is different about the city tonight. She follows the crowds moving toward the Brandenburg Gate, and what she sees there stops her in her tracks. People are crying, dancing, embracing complete strangers. West Germans and East Germans, separated for 28 years, are holding each other like long-lost family, because that's exactly what they are. Angela Merkel doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. She stands very still in the middle of all that beautiful chaos, and she watches. Later, she will say, "I knew that night that everything was going to change, and I knew I had to be part of it." The cage had opened, and Angela Merkel stepped out. She never looked back. The wall has fallen. East Germany is crumbling. Everything that Angela Merkel has known for her entire life is dissolving overnight, and she, the quantum chemist, the scientist, the researcher, is about to make the most unexpected decision of her life. She is going to enter politics, not because she always dreamed of it, not because she was ambitious in that way, not because she wanted fame or recognition, but because she looked at the chaos swirling around her. the confusion, the disorder, the sheer enormity of what needed to be rebuilt. And she thought, someone has to bring order to this. Someone has to think clearly. Someone has to do the hard, unglamorous, necessary work. And then she asked herself a question that would change everything. Why not me? In late 1989, a new political party is forming in East Germany called Democratic Awakening. Angela joins as a volunteer. She doesn't walk in demanding a position or a title. She sets up their computer systems. She answers phones. She does whatever needs doing. No job is too small for her. No task is beneath her. This will always be her way. Utterly practical, completely without ego, focused entirely on the work itself. And within weeks, people notice her. Not because she is loud or dramatic. She is neither of those things. But because when she speaks, every single word makes sense. Her arguments are clear and precise and impossible to argue with, like a scientist presenting data in front of a room full of colleagues. She becomes the party's spokeswoman almost immediately. In March 1990, East Germany holds its first free elections, and its last, as it turns out, because just months later, the country ceases to exist entirely. Democratic Awakening merges with the CDU, the Christian Democratic Union, West Germany's conservative party, and Angela Merkel runs for a seat in parliament. She wins. She is 35 years old. She has been in politics for less than 6 months, and she is already exactly where she needs to be. On October 3, 1990, East and West Germany reunite. 45 years of division over. One nation, one future. And Angela Merkel, the girl who grew up behind the wall, who spent her entire childhood inside the cage, is now a member of the unified German parliament, the Bundestag. Her journey has only just begun. Helmut Kohl, the Chancellor of Germany, one of the most powerful, most towering political figures in all of European history, the man who made German reunification happen. He is massive, physically and politically, standing 6'4", weighing over 300 pounds, with a personality that fills every room he walks into. Loud, dominant, impossible to ignore. And he takes a particular interest in this quiet woman from the East, Angela Merkel. He calls her das Mädchen, which means the girl. He says it with affection. Some people call it condescension. Either way, Kohl sees something in her that many others miss. He sees intelligence. He sees discipline. He sees reliability. And in 1991, he appoints her as Minister for Women and Youth. She is 37 years old, the youngest minister in the cabinet, and the only woman. The men around her underestimate her completely and absolutely. They look at this quiet woman in her simple clothes, no designer suits, no polished speeches, no theatrical gestures, and they think she is harmless. They think she is grateful just to be in the room. They think she will follow, not lead. They are spectacularly, historically wrong. In 1994, Kohl promotes her again, this time to Minister for the Environment. It is a genuinely difficult portfolio. East Germany's industrial collapse has left behind an environmental catastrophe. Rivers poisoned, forests dying, air thick with pollution. Merkel attacks the problems like the scientist she is. She analyzes the data, builds consensus across different groups and parties, and delivers real results. In 1995, she hosts the United Nations Climate Conference right there in Berlin, and she chairs the negotiations herself. World leaders, powerful men who had never heard her name before, walk away impressed. She is building something, quietly, carefully, patiently, exactly the way she does everything. A reputation, a network, a foundation. And then in 1998, the world she has so carefully constructed suddenly collapses beneath her feet. The CDU loses the national election. Kohl, her mentor, her patron, the man who gave her her start, is out of power. And then the scandal breaks. Kohl is caught hiding illegal party donations. Millions of Deutschmarks funneled through secret accounts, completely hidden from public view. The party is in shock. Nobody wants to speak out. Nobody wants to be the one to betray the great Helmut Kohl, except one person. In December 1999, Angela Merkel publishes a newspaper article, and in that article, she calls on the CDU to break free from Kohl, to stand for what is right, not for what is convenient, not for what is loyal. The party, she writes, must learn to walk without him. Germany is absolutely stunned. Das Mädchen, the girl, the quiet one, the one everyone underestimated, has just publicly turned on her own mentor. Some people call it betrayal. Some people call it the most courageous thing a politician has done in years. Angela Merkel calls it necessary, and she never explains herself any further. She doesn't have to, because within months, she is elected as the new leader of the CDU. The girl Kohl called Das Mädchen has just taken his party. She is now the leader of Germany's biggest opposition party. But the road to chancellor is not straight, and it is not easy. It is full of people who do not believe that a woman can lead Germany, men who whisper behind her back in the corridors of power, men who call her the pastor's daughter, as if faith is something to be embarrassed about, men who say she is too quiet, too boring, too Eastern, too different. She hears all of it, and she keeps working. In 2002, when the CDU campaigns in the federal election, they don't choose Angela Merkel to lead the ticket. They choose Edmund Stoiber, a Bavarian politician, because they believe a man from the West has a better chance of winning than a woman from the East. Stoiber loses the election. The lesson is not lost on Angela Merkel. She watches. She waits. In her personal life, she has found quiet happiness. In 1998, she married Joachim Sauer, a chemistry professor, private and understated, very much like herself. They attend the opera together. They go hiking in the mountains. He almost never gives interviews. He rarely appears in public at all. He becomes known, rather affectionately, as the Phantom of the Opera. Their relationship is a partnership between two scientists who understand each other completely and who have both chosen a life of substance over a life of performance. By 2005, Chancellor Gerhard Schröder's government is struggling badly. Economic reforms have made him deeply unpopular. Unemployment is rising. He calls a snap election, confident that he can win. This time, it is Angela Merkel who leads the CDU, and nobody gives her an easy ride. Schröder is louder than her. He is more theatrical, more aggressive, more comfortable in front of the cameras. In one famous television debate, he looks directly at her and says, "You don't have what it takes to be chancellor." She looks back at him. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't raise her voice. She simply waits for him to finish, and then she continues making her argument, calmly and precisely, as if he had never spoken. The election results come in on September 18, 2005. The CDU wins by the narrowest of margins. After weeks of exhausting coalition negotiations, Angela Merkel becomes Chancellor of Germany, the first woman ever to hold that office, the first person from the former East Germany to lead the unified nation. She is 51 years old. She has gone from a physics laboratory in communist East Berlin to the most powerful office in Europe, and she has done it entirely, completely on her own terms, without drama, without scandal, without ever, for a single moment, losing herself. Germany and the world would never be the same. Nobody expected Angela Merkel to last. She had won by a razor-thin margin. She was leading a fractured coalition of parties that didn't particularly like each other. Political analysts, journalists, her own colleagues, they gave her 2 years, maybe 3. They said she was too inexperienced, too soft, too much of a compromise candidate. They were wrong by 13 years, because what the analysts didn't understand, what almost nobody fully understood yet, was something fundamental about Angela Merkel. She does not crack under pressure. She was built for it. She was forged in a system designed to break people, and it didn't break her. And when the biggest crisis of the modern era arrived, the world was about to find out exactly what she was made of. 2008, the global financial system collapses. It happens with terrifying speed. Banks that have stood for over a century fall like dominoes. In America, in Britain, in Iceland, economies that seemed completely solid shatter almost overnight. Millions of people lose their jobs. Millions lose their homes. Millions lose everything they have spent their entire lives building. And panic, real, deep, spreading panic, sweeps across the entire world. Leaders scramble. They hold emergency press conferences. They make sweeping promises they have absolutely no idea how to keep. They shout, they blame each other, they perform. Angela Merkel does none of these things. She sits down with her economists and her advisors. She reads the data, all of it, carefully, methodically. She asks the questions nobody else is asking. And then, when she fully understands what she is dealing with, she acts. In October 2008, she stands in front of the German people and she makes a promise. Not a policy announcement, not a government program, a personal promise. Your savings, she tells them, are safe. I guarantee it. 2 sentences. And Germany does not panic. German banks do not collapse. While other European economies are burning to the ground, Germany survives, and more than survives. She introduces short-time work programs that allow companies to reduce employees' hours rather than firing them outright. German unemployment barely rises. The rest of Europe watches in stunned disbelief. How did she do it? She did what scientists do. She looked at the evidence. She identified the actual problem. She applied the solution. No drama, no theater, just results. Her approval ratings soar, and in 2009, she wins re-election with a commanding majority. The woman they said would last 2 years is just getting started. There is one man on the world stage who has built his entire career on finding other people's weaknesses. Vladimir Putin, former KGB officer, master of intimidation. A man who has made an art form of testing other leaders, probing them, looking for the crack, waiting for the moment they flinch. And he has a very specific way of dealing with Angela Merkel. He knows something about her, something personal. As a child in East Germany, she was bitten by a dog. The fear never fully left her. And in 2007, during a press conference at his residence in Sochi, Putin lets his large black Labrador walk into the room. The dog goes straight to Merkel, sniffs at her, circles her. Photographs capture her face, tense, uncomfortable, genuinely afraid. Putin watches with a small smile. Later, he says he didn't mean to frighten her. Later, she says, I understood why he did it. He had to prove he's a man. She said it calmly, analytically, like she was describing a chemical reaction. She understood him completely, and he knew it. And that, more than anything, is what made their relationship so remarkable. Because despite everything, despite the dog, despite the intimidation, despite the fundamental difference in how they see the world, Merkel kept talking to Putin. She called him directly, in Russian, without a translator standing between them. She had learned Russian as a child in East Germany, and she used it as a tool, a way to speak to him as an equal, not through an intermediary. Putin respected this. He didn't like it, but he respected it. In 2014, Russia invades Ukraine and annexes Crimea. The world is shocked. American officials push for a harder response. Military options are discussed. Merkel disagrees. She picks up the phone and calls Putin. They speak for hours. She doesn't shout. She doesn't threaten. She lays out the consequences of his actions, calmly, precisely, like a list of scientific observations. She then leads Europe in imposing serious economic sanctions on Russia, and she negotiates the Minsk agreements, a ceasefire framework for eastern Ukraine. It is imperfect. It is fragile. History will judge whether it was the right approach, but for years it holds. And she later says of Putin, he lives in a different world, a world of the 19th century. She understood him completely, and she never, not once, let him break her. Summer 2015. Europe is facing the worst refugee crisis since the Second World War. Syria is in flames. Iraq is in ruins. Afghanistan is bleeding. And millions of people, not just young men, but families, children, doctors, teachers, engineers, grandmothers, are fleeing for their lives. They are crossing the Mediterranean Sea in small rubber dinghies. Thousands of them drown. Thousands more arrive at Europe's borders, exhausted, terrified, carrying everything they own in a single bag. Europe's leaders argue. They debate. They build fences. They close borders. They look for ways to keep the problem somewhere else. And then, one image changes everything. The photograph of Alan Kurdi, a 3-year-old Syrian boy, face down on a beach in Turkey, drowned while his family was trying to reach safety. The world sees that photograph and weeps. Angela Merkel does not weep publicly. She acts. On September 4, 2015, she makes the most controversial decision of her entire political career. She opens Germany's borders. No quota, no limit. She looks into the cameras and she speaks 3 words that will define her legacy forever. Wir Schaffen das. We can do this. Over 1 million refugees arrive in Germany in 2015 alone. German citizens come to train stations carrying food, clothing, and children's toys. Volunteers sign up by the thousands to teach German, to offer housing, to open their homes to complete strangers. But the decision is not without cost. Not everyone is welcoming. Fear rises. Anger rises. Far-right movements gain strength across Germany and across Europe. Her own party turns on her. Allies who smiled across dinner tables are now whispering in corridors. Her approval ratings fall sharply. But she does not reverse the decision. She does not apologize for it. She stands by every single word. If we have to apologize, she says, for showing a friendly face in an emergency, then this is not my country. History will argue about this decision for a very long time, but nobody will ever say Angela Merkel was afraid to choose. 2017, Donald Trump becomes President of the United States. And the Western Alliance, the network of relationships and shared values that has held the world together since the end of World War II, begins to shake. Trump questions NATO. He attacks Germany's trade surplus. He pulls out of the Paris Climate Agreement. He treats longtime allies like rivals and rivals like friends. And at a G7 summit in 2018, a photograph is taken that goes around the entire world. Angela Merkel is leaning over a table, both hands flat on the surface, staring directly at Donald Trump. Trump sits with his arms crossed, looking away. The image needs no caption. The message is completely clear. While one leader folds into himself, another leans in. It is one of the most powerful political photographs of the decade. And then, in 2018, something happens that shocks the people who watch her closely. 3 times in public, at official ceremonies in front of cameras, Angela Merkel shakes, uncontrollably, visibly, her body trembling while she stands at attention. She says she is drinking more water and managing the condition. She does not cancel a single appointment. She does not slow down. She refuses, absolutely refuses, to be defined by what her body is doing. Because she is Angela Merkel, and she finishes what she starts. In 2018, she announces she will step down as CDU leader. And in 2021, after 16 years as chancellor, she leaves office, voluntarily, without being pushed, without scandal, without defeat. She simply decides it is time. On her last day, the German military holds a torchlight farewell ceremony, a solemn, beautiful tradition. She is asked to choose 3 pieces of music. She chooses a Protestant hymn for her faith, an East German song from her childhood for her roots, and then, to the complete astonishment of everyone present, she chooses a punk anthem by Nina Hagen, Du hast den Farbfilm vergessen. You forgot the color film. The crowd doesn't know whether to laugh or cry, so they do both. Because in that moment, after 16 years of perfect composure and careful calculation, Angela Merkel finally lets them see who she really is, a girl from the East, with a sense of humor and a heart full of memories. Angela Merkel served as Chancellor of Germany for 16 years. She led Europe's largest economy through the 2008 financial crash, the European debt crisis, Russia's aggression in Ukraine, the refugee crisis, Brexit, the Trump years, and a global pandemic. Forbes named her the most powerful woman in the world 14 times. 14. She held the European Union together when it was threatening to fall apart. She stood up to Vladimir Putin in his own language. She made the hardest decisions in the hardest times, and she made them on the basis of what she believed was right, not what was popular. She was not perfect. No leader ever is. History will debate her decisions for generations to come. The austerity she imposed on struggling European nations, her slow recognition of the dangers of Putin's Russia, the social tensions her refugee policy created at home. These are real debates, and they deserve serious discussion. But here is what is beyond debate. In an era of shouting, she was quiet. In an era of ego, she was humble. In an era of performance, she delivered substance. In an era of lies, she told the truth. In an era of walls, she opened doors. A girl born on the wrong side of a wall, who grew up in a country built on fear and surveillance and control, who was told by history, by tradition, by powerful men who should have known better that she did not belong. She proved every single one of them wrong. Not with anger, not with noise, but with something far more powerful than either of those things, with patience, with intelligence, with an unshakable, unbreakable belief that doing the right thing, even when it costs you, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching, matters. That is Angela Merkel, the girl behind the wall, who became, in the end, the conscience of the world. If this story moved you, if it made you think or feel something, please hit subscribe. Every week, ChronosX documentary brings you the extraordinary true stories of the people who shaped our world. Because history is not just dates and battles and the names of dead kings. History is people, ordinary people who faced impossible circumstances and refused to give up. See you in the next one.